software engineer at Lagos Ride. I don't know if you've heard of. I don't know if you've heard of Lagos Ride before. So if you've not heard of Lagos Ride is a ride-hailing service backed by the Lagos state government, more like Uber, Bolt, and the rest of them. So it's just a new kind of ride-hailing service in Lagos state. So at Lagos Ride, I work primarily on the back end. At Lagos Ride, I work primarily on the back end. Our services are built with Node.js and MongoDB. So coincidentally, that is what we are going to be talking about today, how to use database to be specific, which is MongoDB, how to perform CRUD operations, that is create, read, update, and delete operations. So I'm supposed to start the whole thing with how to create database instances and the rest of them. But I would just like to, I don't know if it's possible to just assess the level of knowledge that we have on that on MongoDB database to be specific. So you can just drop it in the comment section. If you think maybe I should just start with creating instances of MongoDB, you can just let me know. Or if you can, do it by yourself, I will just move on to working with the template I prepared just now. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment or speak.
So hello guys, you heard him. So go ahead and drop your response in the chat.
I'll just take silence as no. So all right. How to okay. All right, I understand that. Okay, let me start by sharing my screen.
Hello.
Nice. Okay, just a minute. Sorry about the delay. I'm trying to open the. Okay. All right. So from what I just thought about now, I won't. The reason why I will not be going too specific into the practical ways of installing MongoDB instances on the local machine is because of the various methods of installing it depending on your operating system. So what we're going to do is I will send you I will just drop a link on how you can install the instances for various operating systems. Personally, I use Linux, so I wouldn't want to use Linux as an example of how to install MongoDB. So what I'll do is this, I'll drop a link. If I drop the link, you can actually check it later on how to install it. But I'd just like you to just focus on the main topic of the day, which is the CRUD operation itself. I'll teach you how to connect to database instance and how to perform the CRUD operation. So since it's difficult for me to actually get feedback as all mics are kind of muted, I would just like, if you need me to repeat myself or to kind of explain some things better, you just drop comments here. I will try to pick it up. So without any comments, I'll just be going straight like that without stopping. So let me just try to share my screen and show you what I have for. Okay, so okay, now so here is my screen, and I was just working on something very bare bone, like something very basic to explain the whole concept I want to put together. And just to say this, I'm sorry to say, but I really don't have like as I said before, this stuff is clashing with some other thing that I'm supposed to be doing, but I'll try as much as possible to be explanatory. So this is one file here that I won't be opening, config.index, the index.js file, the config, because it's let me just quickly show you something. So example.js. I just want to clear the, I've not started anything yet. I just want to tell you something about this config, this index.js file here. So it's a file that looks something like this, and I'll tell you why I won't be opening that file, because it's a connection to one of my personal databases, and I wouldn't want to share the credentials. So, but this is just the structure of the stuff. Let me even verify that you guys can see my screen, because I'm not getting any feedback yet. So how do I?
We can see your screen, Kelvin.
Verify this now. Okay. Oh God. It's what are the messages? Okay. Okay, good. I just saw the messages now that you can see my screen. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is the structure of that file. Something like this, Mongo, and then some URL. Basically, what this is it's a URL that connects to one of my database instances online. So, and how to create that, I said I was going to drop a link. I'm going to drop a link for you guys to check out to create database instances and all that. So, I'll just give an overview. So, when you want to create a database instance, just like any other software, any other service that you want to create. I mean, when I say service, I mean something like a Node.js application, or maybe any kind of programs that you want to write. It needs to run on a computer. So even as much as you might think of MongoDB database, or when you hear database, you might think of it as something that is maybe like a physical container that stores data and the rest of it. It's basically programmed. So it's just like any kind of program that you write. If you have written a program like console.log, whatever before, that is just what database is. So it's just programs that need to run on a machine and that have that exposes to you functionalities that can help you manipulate different kind of data. And this time around, we are talking about saving of data in general. So if you have done JavaScript a bit, which of course I believe that you must have done, so I'll just try to give an instance here. So this is just like the place I'll be using for my rough work. So you have, you can have something like let's array of, okay, let's name. You can save name in an array. Okay, we have something like Kevin, and then we have James. Okay, something like this. Now, this we are storing data inside this array, and then you can do different kind of manipulations on this array. So you can do things like maybe you want to sort the array, or you want to you can decide to sort the array, you can decide to add elements to the array and that kind of stuff. So just as much as this thing is just a program that can help you, that you can use to do different kind of things, that is what database is. So you can just remove the mentality of maybe database, okay, storage, that means we have a physical container or something like that. No, it's just programs like this. It's just that as this is a very simple data structure, MongoDB database or database in general is just what we use to handle storage of data at large, at scale, if you will. So that is basically what database or MongoDB database is about. Now there are different kind of databases. We have that's if I'm going to be looking at it on a large scale, we are going to be dividing it into two. That's the objects, the ones that I used to say, the one that's have the object model structure, and those ones that you cannot, that doesn't have the object model structure. And what I mean is this: normally in databases, we, for example, if you have used SQL before, like MySQL, for instance, you would have to specify that these are the kind of data that you want to save here. So let me use this data structure example I'm giving you here. So let's say you have a data structure like this, and on this, for every element that you want to add to this thing, let's say the first element must be a string. The first element must be a string, and then the second element must be a number. So if you have something like this, that's on a database level, and you had so the structure is going to be something like this. The first element is going to be a string. And sorry that this is a crude example. I'm just trying to make you understand, like conceptually, just understand how databases work in general. So we have a string here as the first element, and this is the string that we have here, and then we have a number as the second element. This is a restriction that this is how this data structure is going to be. So whenever you have restrictions like this, it's very difficult to make changes. And this is how the other databases that are non-relational databases like MySQL, how they work. This is basically the way they work. So there's this restriction. However, in MongoDB, the good thing is that we don't have this restriction. You can just actually save any kind of things that you have that you want to save in the database. You can save anything there. Now, this is not data structure that the MongoDB database uses. Now, the data structure that it uses is more like when you're well, if you want to save the data, now database that you use is more like a normal JavaScript object. So you have something like this, so like something like this. Hold on, we'll still talk about the creating and finding and the rest of them. I don't know. I will have to be checking the comment section once in a while just to make sure that I'm not missing out on any question that you have. Okay, there's no question yet. So, okay, so like a student, let me say a student, for example, a student should have a name. So we have a student should have a name. I can call myself Kevin Uti, and then a student might have a class. Okay, a class, and you can say okay, level 200. I don't know how we put that. Okay, then we can say something like I think a student should have age, and you can put something like 29, although you don't have to make it a string. So this is basically the kind of thing that MongoDB allows us to do. Like, imagine having to, if I'm writing something like this down, like students, it makes sense to you if you have done JavaScript before, because this structure is something that you're very familiar with. It's just a normal object. Now, MongoDB allows you to just save this kind of thing directly inside database without having to do any kind of formality, like any kind of restrictions that this is how you want the structure to be. Just like the example I gave you, where you if you feed this string, you cannot like you have to maintain that structure of 2 elements there. So now with this now I want to say something that is actually contrary to the first thing I said. I said before that some databases allow you to just they will not allow you to insert elements data of different kind of structures. So because that particular functionality is very much needed. What I mean is this: you don't want, if you are working on a big project, for instance, and you have a data structure that is like this, and let's say we are not putting any restrictions that name should be string or class should be this, we are not putting any restriction at all. So if you are working on a large project and maybe one of your teammates want to save data inside database, so imagine somebody creating a similar data structure, something like this, or a similar data. So I'll just put something like student 2, and I just call this maybe like 3. I put 3 here, and okay, name of a student is now 3. Now with my initial definition, it means that we can actually save this inside the database. But we need a kind of restriction. We need to be MongoDB normally will allow you to do this kind of stuff. You understand? MongoDB will allow you to do this kind of stuff directly inside database. But because we need to be doing this kind of checks in order to build something that is going to be much more durable. What I mean is, like, you don't have to have clash of data types like this. So there needs to be a way to actually do these kind of checks. That is before we save data inside the database. Now, let me show you what does that, and that would now bring us to the Mongoose part of the topic. So the topic is MongoDB and Mongoose. So the MongoDB part, I told you, it allows us to just save data inside database in a very, very good way, something that we are familiar with, a data structure that we are very much familiar with. However, Mongoose will help us to add that restriction that I'm just talking about here, so that a teammate will not just say, okay, name is 3 or something like that. Now, you can pretty much just clear everything that you have in your head about this. Now, this is just like a very crude example, a very crude explanation on how MongoDB databases and Mongoose work in general. So now, don't forget how I told you this index.js file is. This is actually the structure of the stuff. However, I've said I was not going to open it because of this my personal DB URL that is there. Okay, so I'll just take you through the main items of the course, the main items I'm going to be discussing about today. So, okay, first of all, when you have a database, now I want us to think about this together. You have a database somewhere, you've created an instance. Let me just show you what I mean. Like, okay. the way my Zoom is currently working, because I had to install it before this meeting, I can't share multiple screen, I think. So that is not a problem. That shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Okay, that's not a problem. Don't worry, let's just continue. Okay, so let me just verify that we can all follow. Please, can you just comment if you are following? Just let me know that you're following and that you understand what I'm saying before I go into the main content. Hello, is anyone here? Okay, okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay. I think I've gotten a response. All right. So I will tell you everything I'm going to be using are the let me first talk about the versions of the things I'm using. So first of all, I will first show you my Node version. I'm using Node version 14.20. So I will also show you my package.json file. I'm going to be using Mongoose 5.12.10. There's a later version, and I will tell you the changes between this version 5 and the version 6 style. That is the current version, but I'm going to be using 5.1.2 because I believe that it makes me it's to make me better teach you about how to connect to database, because there are some kind of things that are actually removed during the connection process. We are using version 6 Mongoose. So that being said, I will now I would like us to just imagine everything together. I want to just follow everything step by step. So imagine that you have a storage somewhere. Now you are why do we need storage in the first place? We need storage because we need to store something. That might seem like a very stupid answer to give, but that's just the truth. Now you have a pause, and why do you have a pause? You have a pause because you need to keep something inside the pause. So why do we need a database? We need a database because we need to store things inside the database. That is why we simply need a database. Now, if you have a database, now we need a way to actually connect. Imagine that you have a tank in your house. So you have a tank in your house to store water, and then you have a house. Okay. Now the tank is outside your house. Now the house is the program that we are writing. Programs that does what? Okay, programs that calculates school fees that the student have been paying. Program that calculates the tax, total tax that have been remitted by a particular country for a year. Those are programs. There are programs that does different kind of things. So that's just like a house. Now the storage tank for water is what they call database. Now, given these two elements, there's something that is missing: a connection between the tank and the house. And so what comes to your mind is this: there needs to be a way to actually connect the tank to the house. You understand? So this connection process, now that is what we are going to be looking into first. So the connection from the tank to the house, that is what we are going to be looking into now. And this is the file that I will just use this analogy to describe how this connection is being made to the database. So first of all, I told you that we are not going to be using just pure MongoDB. Why? Because we don't want people to just be saving different kind of things in our system. So we are going to be using Mongoose to write to enforce some kind of types on different models. I will define what a model is later. So I will start from here. So I rightly named the the file DB connector, which is the pipe I'm talking about. So this is the file that actually connects my programs to the database. So what do I need? I've imported my Mongoose, the stuff that will help me to put some kind of restrictions. Now, this is the config file I'm telling you about. The config, remember I told you that this config, I'm not going to be opening it, but this is the DB, which is this, oh God. But you remember the way the structure was now, the example I gave you. So I'm importing that DB, that string, that URL to my database. So with that being said, I created the connection first, like connected the pipe first to the tank. So Mongoose create connection DB, which is this DB is like the URL. You remember what I said? The URL to the database. So that's what I'm saving here. And then we have options. So the options are just like things that you add for the database to the things that you want. How do I put this now? Okay, when I'm using the tank analogy now, what the option is in terms of tank analogy is like let's say you can just connect the pipe directly, but you can add some kind of filter. Like if you need clean water, you can add some filter to filter the water, that kind of stuff. So that is what options are for. So you can just check up different meaning for what these options do, like for different kind of configuration, when it's true, when it's false, and all that kind of stuff. So okay, given that that is understood, I'll be moving to the next part. I don't think I'm missing with any. I don't think I'm missing anything here. Okay, so we've connected to the database. Now, since we connected to the database, remember when you connect your pipe to the tank, you have to turn on the tank now and see that water is flowing through the pipe. Now, but when water is flowing through the pipe, some things might, water might start dropping from the pipe. Maybe you don't connect it very well and stuff like that. So you need to do all those checks. So that is very, very important. In fact, I feel that as in a program, in software development as a whole, personally, I think that error checking is one of the best skills that you can actually have. Error checking is it's better that somebody sends a request to your system. Maybe you are trying to transfer money now, and you're trying to transfer money to somebody from another country, and the money is very, very huge. You try to transfer the money. Is it not better to say, okay, when you transfer the money, something went wrong. You see it in the app that something went wrong. It's better than you transfer the money and no response, nothing like that. So it's usually very good to do error checks so that you can be in total control of your system. You understand? So after running the connection, you're connecting the pipe to the tank, I need to check if there's any kind of water that is leaking through the pipe. So that is where this comes in. So I'm doing top universe.catch. This top universe is just an instance of the connection. Now, I can decide to remove all this. I can decide to remove okay. Sorry. What did I say? Okay. This undo. Okay. Okay. So I can decide to remove all this I can start to remove all these from the code, like from here to here. But the problem is that I still need to do that check. So I need to check for error. If there's error, I just log it to console. Now I need um to indicate when the database has been connected. So hold on. I think I just oh god. Okay. I think I messed with some of my command line too today. So my okay. This now, so I'll just copy this and this nice. I think so. Okay, sorry, I think I made a mistake. Top universe. Okay, universe at catch. Okay, I think all is good now. All right, so when I had the check for the error, I log it to console in case there's any error. So from starting my server, I just check and know that okay, there is there's no error there, or this is what caused the error. So another thing is this. So whenever the connection is opened, and I don't know if I start explaining some of these programming paradigms, but I don't think I have enough time. I'll just go through this fast. So this is more like a list now that we listen for when the connection is open. That is when we connect our pipe to the tank. That's when the connection is made to database. So we now have that. Okay, I now want to see it in my console and say app database connected at so time. I want to know the time. So this is also another level of error check, more like a listener during the process of maybe when you are done connecting, in process of making some kind of request and all this kind of stuff. Maybe there's some kind of error. So this is the listener that will log the error down. So now I exported the top universe instance of the connection. That is the database connection that we have here. And then I exported Mongoose itself. So given that that is true, or that the minute that we understand what that is now, I will go into the Mongoose part of the whole thing. So the Mongoose is what we are using to add restrictions to our database. So the restriction we're trying to add to a database now is things like this. Like when we have, I created a model called users. The user should have a first name and the last name. So these are the restrictions that I added. I said this first name should be type string, and the what did they call it? The field should be required. That is, without this, there's going to be error. So without giving us first name, there's going to be error. That's going to is at the MongoDB level. These checks are not being done, but because we added this level of uh, check, this check will be done programmatically, and then whenever there's any kind of non-compliance to any of these our rules here, is going to throw up an error. So the same thing for first name. Now timestamps is just how do I put this now? Okay, timestamp will just help you to whenever you save it is whenever I save data to the MongoDB database, timestamp will help you to keep track of the time when you created it and when you updated it, just like that. So I set it to true because I want to be seeing that. Now minimize is more like sometimes you might just have data structure that is something like this. Let me say data. I'll just maybe another field called data, and then I call it something like type object, and then I put a default. I will explain what a default is now. A default is just like if you don't provide the field, this case now we have to provide because it's required. If you don't provide the field, default is the value that field is going to take. So for a system, for something like this, minimize will just help you to like normally without putting this minimize equals to true here, what is going to happen is that whenever you save a data and you don't have data to be this data available, or you set data to be equal to empty object, MongoDB would by itself optimize the memory for you by removing this thing from the database. I don't know if you understand. So it will remove this empty object from the database entirely because there's nothing inside. So there's no point in saving it. But because I put minimize is equal to true, it will just leave this empty object in database for me because that is where I want it to be. Understand? So I want to be able to save empty objects in the database. So this minimize is equal to true will deal with that for me. Then ID is equal to true has to do with for this. Okay, Mongoose assign each of your schemas. You can see the comments here from an ID virtual getter by default, which returns the document's ID field. So normally when you are getting the result from the database, we are supposed to be having underscore ID, but there's a getter there which is ID. A getter in the sense that you can of course if you don't JavaScript, so you know what a getter. I believe that you know what getter is. So after setting up this rule, we export the Mongoose because that's what we'll be using to create and do some kind of database manipulation through our pipe that is connected to the tank, so to say. So I will start with this. So I will just remove this, and our first operation that we're going to be doing, we're going to be creating some data. So and I will show you how we'll go to the database live and go and check if the data we are saving is being created. So I'm going to write, we have, I'm going to import the users model. So the model we just exported now. So users model. So I like to append it so I know what I'm talking about. So the users model. So the first thing we're going to do is we'll try to create, how do I put this now? So we'll try, what's happening? Okay, so try to create user. So okay, sorry, I need to add something to this this users because okay, it's there. Okay, so we have create user. So I want to create user, so I will cast user is equal to or okay, let's just call it let's call it a function. I think that will be the best. So okay. So I'm going to call it a function, create user. So the reason I want to call I decided to call it a function is because of this async. When you're making connection to database, and database is something that it's not within the current node process. I don't know if you guys, if I don't know if you don't understand what I mean by node process, you can just indicate in the comment section. So I will just I will just attend to it. But basically, okay, sorry, I'm just seeing the questions here. Okay, first, okay, Control Z undo. Yeah, I know Control Z is undo, but there's something I changed. I changed some command on my system today. That was why I wasn't able to use Control Z. If I press Control Z, there's something that is coming up on the screen. It's just me messing around with my system. I will set that up later. So the next thing, what are we supposed to expect in the config module since it is connected to the DB? I just want to know, since you said you can't share the file. Okay, I'll explain again. So the next thing is, can we get the folder at the end of the lesson, please? Oh, yes, I can actually share the folder at the end of the lesson. So how do I know the module I will use in Mongoose? Are there any restrictions to Mongoose? Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm just looking at these questions now. Okay. I think okay. I think it's best to right now. I can see your question at the same time. Continue. So I've already divided my screen into two. So the first question, what are we supposed to expect in the config module, since it's okay? So the config is not really a module. So let me just replicate it here. So this is what the config is like. So I'll just create another config2. So config2 folder, the same thing, identical to that. So this is what is inside the config. So index.js, then module.exports equal to db, and then URL of the DB. So the URL of the DB. URL of DB. So this is just what is there. And that is why I imported it from here. So I imported the DB instance from that config. So the reason why the reason you will not see me write something like index.js, I believe you already know that when you're importing something from a folder and there's an index.js file inside the folder, it's just imported directly without even indicating the name of the file. So I don't need to say index slash anything. So once I just write the name of the folder, it will at once let me gain access to the index.js file. So that's pretty much that. I believe that I've actually answered that question. If I haven't, please, you can actually ask, and I will try to clarify that. So can we get the folder at the end of the lesson? Yes, as I said before, I'm going to share the folder at the end of the lesson. So how do I know the module I will use in Mongoose? So when you say how do I know the module I'm using, can you please explain better, because I really understand what you mean by how do you know the module you use in Mongoose. So are there any restrictions to Mongoose? What do you mean by restrictions? So it really depends on what you mean by restrictions. Please, could you please just expatiate more? I'll be very, very happy to answer your question. So while I'm waiting for you to explain better, I'm going to just continue with what I'm doing. Not to say that I'm not going to answer your question. I just need better explanation, obviously. So better clarity on your question. So I'm going to write, I've declared the function. So, okay, so basically the config module just contains the URL you want to connect to in your database. That is a URL port. Exactly. So that's just it, Bendex. So that's you just made the correct statement. So I'm going to create the user first, and please guys, I'll just try to just try to be kind of fast, and I'll be available on LinkedIn to actually answer some of the questions that you might have, or if you want me to assist you with any other thing. So create user. So the create user function is just to connect, to create a user from our connection. So what do we need? We are trying to create a user. We need the user model, obviously, because that's our connection to the database. So to create the user, I'm going to do this const await. Now this await that I'm using wouldn't have been possible if I did not declare declare this async function. So this await is actually indicating that I want to perform an operation that is asynchronous, in the sense that I'm not expecting a response immediately. So that's just some of the basics of Node.js if you've done Node.js before. So const user is equal to await, then users model dot, we are trying to create something. So what are we trying to create? Because we already have a model declared. So what's our model like? We can go back to the stuff and just check. Our model has first name and last name. So I'm going to um, do this first name. Now, first, I would like you to just say something. Okay, you imported the schema. My point is, are there others like the schema you imported in your Mongoose file? Okay. Okay, DB connector. All right, so I imported the schema. Okay, imported the schema. Yeah, I did import the schema, but are there others like the schema you imported in your Mongoose? No, I don't think I imported any other thing. I just imported only the schema just to create the schema, and that's pretty much it. So I think I'm interested in helping you understand your problem better, or your question better, or to help you structure your question better. So if you don't mind, you can actually chat me up on LinkedIn at any time. I will definitely respond to you. So, but this is the file, and I imported the schema, and that's the schema to just create the model. So that being said, I shall just continue. So to create the user, we know that there are two fields that are required here. So the first name field, I'm going to set the first name to be Kevin, and then the last name field, and the last name field. Okay, so I will intentionally do something. We said we are adding Mongoose to actually add restrictions to our work. So I'm going to remove the last name part of this thing and just put only first name here, and then try to create this stuff here. So I'll log this. Okay, I'll try to run the code now, node index. Let's see what happens. Okay, app database connected. Can you see the connection have been established because of this database connection? As I see, app database connected at, it gave us the time when the database was actually connected. So okay, so nothing happened because I did not actually call the function, so I forgot. So I'm going to call the function now, create user. I'm going to call the function create user. So I will disconnect and rerun the code. Okay. User validation field. So can you see what happened? Users validation field. You can see something like this last name, but last name is required. That's because last name is required and we did not add the last name. So I just wanted to see this error. Now there's something bad about this. This error is not supposed to be popping up like this. When you're working on something that is in production, or a production application, maybe you're working on an app on a backend for a client, your error log is not supposed to be looking something like this at all. So why do we undo this? Remember what I told you? I told you that error handling is very, very important in programming, extremely important. So what you have to do is we need to make this error cleaner. Yeah, our system is throwing up error now because we intentionally left out last name, but let's just make this error cleaner. So what do we do to make this error cleaner? There are many ways to actually undo errors in JavaScript. So especially when you have to do with database, you need to undo error. It's very, very important to undo error. So we have something like this. Now in my case, what I'll just do is I'll just catch this and I want to catch any possible error that we can actually have, and then I will put it in this way. So what this basically does is, okay, if there's any error, so catch the error, then the result of the result of user should just be this object here, error and with E. So what this does is, so let's say we want to do some other things, and let's say some other programs. Let me put it this way. Okay, let's say we have other programs down here that's supposed to run. We have other programs here that are supposed to run. We don't want this error to happen and the program will still continue. So what we just need to do is we need to do a check for this. So if there's user and Okay, this part might be a little bit confusing. So what I'm saying, I want to do Control Z and this that one is coming up. So if our user and user.error, if user and user.error, that's if there's error. So console.log user.error, or let me just say something like this: console.log there is error. Okay, there's error. So if we run this code, you see how clean our console is going to be. So you can see it just told us simply there's error. It's as simple as that. There's error somewhere. That's what the stuff just told us. However, so if you want to since we know that there's error, sometimes we might just need the error to be more descriptive. So be due to, for logging purposes, so you can just do something like this. And most especially in most cases, you will need to actually return because there's no reason to actually continue with the code since there's error there. So I'm going to rerun this stuff, and you can see it told us that where, so okay, sorry, I made a mistake. E is not defined. It's meant to be user.error. Okay, so we close this and run it again. So the error is neater now. You can see something that user validation, it told us there's error and then describe the error for us. So something like that. So this is just basically all about our error handling. So you can actually continue with the other things that you have to do, maybe like log console.log user. So now let's just fix the error that we have because it's caused by the fact that we didn't add last name to it. So we have last name, let's see. So I will close this and just rerun this. Okay, so we have been able to create something. So how do we know we actually created something? How do we know we created data? So I'm going to write defined. So this is just where I'm going to stop. I wish I could actually continue. I really have a lot of things to actually talk about. Maybe later I'll just write maybe a little article or something like if you reach out to me, I can actually explain better on how to do some other things on database level. So this is create user with oh, sorry, what's the issue? Okay, sorry. No. Okay, secret user. So, okay, so what I'm going to be talking about next, we've created a user. You can see in database what's there. This is the user's ID. So I'm just going to be using find. So let me just create another thing to find user. So we another function to find user. So find user. So I'll just use find user by ID because MongoDB creates what do they call it? It creates a default ID for us. So I'll call it find user. Let me just call it find user. So async this, and I will be adjusting this function so much like this particular function here. So I'm going to be running find user console.log. Okay, find user. So okay, no need for console.log because just run the function here. So I know I've actually gone past the time, but sorry, I just need to finish up this. So find user. So what is find user supposed to do? We're supposed to just maybe you can find the user in different ways when it comes to MongoDB. You can find the user using this internally generated ID, and then I'll do two ways. We use the ID and we use the name to actually find the user. So first of all, we'll try to get the user. So user is equals to await users model dot find by ID. So this is the function find by ID. You can actually check documentation. You see a lot of interesting stuff there. So as usual, don't forget first thing first. Always try to remember to catch your errors. It's very important. So your errors. So I'll use the same pattern to catch the error. We have this. So so find by ID. So what do I want to add here now? I want to add the ID to the distance. So we'll just do it so that this thing can accept ID as So normally there's something you're supposed to do here, but I won't be going through that. What you're supposed to do, you're supposed to do a check to validate the ID. So to do, I'm supposed to do a check to validate the ID. Let me see if I can quickly do that. I don't know if this actually have. Okay. Mongoose. I honestly don't know if this is valid object ID. Okay, good. I think it has this function. So ideally, okay, you can just read the condition. Returns true if Mongoose can cast. Okay, so it's very. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll just import this as Mongoose. Mongoose. So we have this as Mongoose. So we've imported Mongoose, and so I said we are going to do what we do a check. We are supposed to be doing this. Anything you're saving database, always make sure that you are anything you are doing, just make sure that you are validating. Even when I'm saving name string, normally I'm supposed to be validating all these things. Maybe if you are collecting this data from an app, maybe a mobile app, that's they are submitting first name and last name, you are supposed to be validating most of the fields. So you're supposed to validate the name field to make sure that it's string and the last name to make sure that it's string. Or if you are accepting a number, you have to validate every single thing. So that's pretty much that. But let me just show you how to validate this ID so that because if you don't validate ID, if you don't validate it, it will always show up error here if it's not a correct MongoDB ID. So what you do is let's do a check. So if mongoose dot is valid object ID. So I believe this is so if it's not, so I'll just add this. If it's not a valid, just return. And but before you return, tell us something that's console.log that's hey invalid MongoDB ID. So we are doing this check so that it doesn't throw up error. So we don't just accept any kind of data into our system. So we have the so find by ID. Now I'm going to show you some other options that we actually have here. And I don't know, I don't have enough time for this. Okay, so I will just include this option, lane equal to true, and I'll tell you what lane equal to true does. So what lane equal to true does is this option is just to help kind of make the query faster in the sense that MongoDB normally, when you're making requests through Mongoose, it will generate some kind of necessary extra data it's the kind of data that is returned is normally what they call a document, you understand? So, but with this lane is equal to true, it will just return plain JavaScript object to you, which is faster in a way. So that is pretty much what you need to know about lane. There are some other options that we have here. So this third option that I wrote null for is called projection. So what projection does is, for example, if I need something like first for only first name. So if I need something like only first name, you just do first name is equal to 1, and it will return to the response that is going to give you. It's just going to be a response that will include only first name. You understand? So if I do first name 0, it will remove first name from my response. You know that we have first name and last name there. So this is just like a projection to say, okay, first name, I don't want first name when you're returning data. So this is very good in the case where you're fetching user data and maybe there is password inside data and you don't want to return the password. So you just include this third option and set password to be equal to 0. So this password equal to 0 now, we tell the database that, oh, see, when you're returning data for me or for users, forget the password because we don't want to show the users this kind of thing. So that's what projection is all about. There are some other advanced concepts that have to do with projection when you're dealing with something they call aggregation pipeline with large data sets and all those kind of stuff, but I won't go into that. So I'll just make it null. I'm very happy to share resources with you if you reach out to me. So this is I was getting the data. So remember, we are expecting possible error from this. So we have to do another error check here. So user, remember what we did the other time now. So user, you do the error check, and when you do the error check, you have to log it to console and say, okay, there is an error. Okay, there is an error. And possibly this for debugging purpose, show user .error for debugging purpose, and then you, if there's no error, so since there will not be error at this stage of the stuff, you just log user. So what do we do? So I'm trying to find user now. So we have to pass in an ID. Let's pass in invalid ID first. I'm going to pass in an invalid ID. Remember, we added an error check so that whenever we have an invalid ID, it will, bounce back. So we just say, hey, invalid MongoDB ID. That's very interesting because this, if I just imagine this, that I comment out this error check to just to show you how important error check is. If I remove this error check now and just do this, you can see how messy our console is. You don't want to be seeing this kind of thing. This thing is very, very scary, even for me. I'm just something like I say, see all these kind of errors like this. So you need to be adding error checks. Any kind of thing that you're doing, how did I generate the user ID? So I didn't generate the user ID. So I told you the other time, if you scroll up in the console here, when we created the data, when we created the data, so this is what we had. This is user. This is real user ID that's in my database now. But we cannot. This is the real database. The real user ID in the database, and I didn't generate it. It's auto-generated by MongoDB. So what I was trying to say is that there's the MongoDB has a format of generating its own ID. You understand? So I'm saying that it's possible for us to actually want to fetch something, and maybe the client or the person that is developing the mobile app is submitting the wrong ID to us. Do you want our server to just crash? You can imagine this alone crashes the server. So since we don't want it to crash, I'm just doing a test. I'm saying that, okay, let's just use a random ID. This is not ID that this is obviously invalid. We know the ID that we're supposed to use. Let me just copy it and save it somewhere. Let me save it somewhere. So this is the ID that we're supposed to use. Okay, the ID we're supposed to use. I'll paste it here. So this is the correct ID of the data that will save database. So I'm saying find user, and we are writing this rubbish here, and we are saying that, okay, let's even remove the error handler that we added there, and we saw how messy the console is. So we added the check, and if you run the stuff with the check, hey, invalid MongoDB ID. This error is very, very simple. MongoDB, that you can tell the person that's developing mobile app, guy, you are sending me invalid MongoDB ID on the server. So just try to check your own end. It's as simple as that. So check is very, very, very important. So I believe I've answered that question. So with this, we can actually do the correct thing. So we can get the real ID and then do the ID this way, and we paste the ID, the correct ID, and then we try to fetch from the database. So okay, so you can see we are getting the response of the data that we have saved in the database. So that is pretty much what I'm going to be talking about in this lesson. So I don't know if you have any kind of question that you want to ask me that I would love to answer, because I have some other things to actually do, like right now. In fact, I'm a bit late to what I'm supposed to be doing. So if you have other questions that if I think that the question is going to be taking a lot of time, or if you need more assistance, because I'm really willing to actually share resources with you. There's so much that you can actually learn relating to MongoDB database and Mongoose itself. I can show you a lot of advanced level stuff that you can, like a lot of resources from beginner to advanced that you can use. So do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very, very much happy to help you. And not only on MongoDB, if you have any problem that's related to my stack, Node.js, MongoDB, Python, TypeScript, just like that, just something related to backend development mostly, and maybe so a bit of DevOps. If you have any question at all, you can actually reach out to me. So it's just as simple as that. I hope that you've been able to learn one or two things from what I talked about. Do not forget, whenever you're writing code, always try to, as much as possible, as a backend developer, you need to be doing error checks. It's very important to be doing error check. It's extremely important. If you do anything, just always ask yourself, did I do error check? Did I check anything you're accepting at all? Always check for errors. So thank you very much. I believe I've been able to teach you one or two things. I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Thank you. I think we have learned a whole lot, and I also dropped your LinkedIn link. So guys, you can follow him on
Is there anybody that's supposed to
LinkedIn.
anchor the
Send him a message.